Felix here, and welcome to this morning's pre-market live stream. Unfortunately, the biggest winning streak of this market is about to end, and I want to explain to you why. And I want to give you the good news, because there is also always a silver lining here. And if you're feeling a little bit gloomy about the pre-market, Winston's here to cheer you up. There he is. He's taking this in a stride, aren't you, Winston? Yes? Not too worried? I think he's not too worried about it, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So this isn't a doom and gloom video, but I want to make sure you are aware of what's going on out there so you can make better decisions. You're aware of the risk, you're aware of the opportunities. So I want to walk you through why this run is about to end, why hedge funds are not buying. The big funds are not buying either. And guess what? Well, the computers are not buying either. Those algo funds. And earnings are, quite frankly, not what Wall Street has expected. Plus, well, the biggest buyer out there might just be our silver lining. I'm talking about the biggest stock buyer out there. And in fact, markets are looking, I'll show you the pre-market before we get cracking here, right now. 1 second. If I can find the window, that is. Where did my window go? I also need to share my screen with you. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? There we go. There she is. And she's a little angry this morning. Netflix particularly down 4.8% on bigly tariffs on films. Yes, foreign-made evil films made overseas in the dark places that are outside the United States are going to be tariffed by some silly margin, 100-something%. And that's Trump's latest move. Berkshire is down 3%. Why? Presumably because Warren Buffett is, after 60 years of the helm of Berkshire, actually resigning, not today, but the end of the year, and he's handing it over to Greg Abel, who is hopefully able to continue that incredible run over there. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. And I've been wanting to buy Berkshire for years, and I've always I see a really big one-man risk there. And that problem will be solved this year, so I might actually start buying Berkshire. I actually think it's on my buy list today, isn't it? For you guys in the community? Was it on our buy list for today? I think it actually was, wasn't it? All right, then. So let's jump straight into it here. Why the biggest winning streak is about to end. Hedge funds, what the funds are doing, what the computers are doing, what earnings is going on, and the biggest buyer out there, what are they doing? Would it be useful for you to understand this knowledge? Do you think it might make you into a better informed, better investor? If you think that might be true, then write better in the chat, or just a B will do as well. Winston is a majestic creature. He really is. Yes, he is. We had a lovely little walk today with some of our best friends, some of my best friends, also some of his best friends. So there he is in all his lovely glory. He's also enjoying the kittens, although he doesn't quite get them yet. They're starting to move around a little bit more, though. So I reckon in about 2 weeks, they'll be crawling all over him, and I think he'll rather enjoy it. He does like a good kitten. He's just a little scared of cats generally, because the ones we've got, well, they are his boss and master, and he knows it. So he's always like, yeah, I know you kind of want to play, but usually this ends with me getting, into trouble. So what is this? This is the S&P 500 consecutive days in green. Now, you could have made the chart in green, or you could have picked a solemn color, black. This banker was a bit gloom and doom, apparently. So where are we? We're at 9 days. 9 days in a row of the market going up. And you might be thinking, that's not a lot. Surely that happens all the time. Well, let me show you. If I draw a little line across, how often has the market actually gone up for more than 9 days? So 10 days, right? There was one here in the sort of 90s. There were 2 here in the 80s, 3 maybe in the 80s. There were 2 in the 1960s. Actually, 3, 4, maybe even 5 in the 1960s. We had 3 instances in the 1950s, maybe one more after World War II. And then we had 2 in the 1920s. So you can kind of see this is pretty freaking rare. So purely statistically speaking, the market isn't going to go up today. And honestly, that sounds like a silly thing, everybody to look at it, but it's actually just what everybody looks at. And I'll give you one more. If you look at the QQQ, the NASDAQ, basically, right? But what most of you guys are looking at. What's the problem you see with it? I'll give you 2 problems, actually. If you see one of those, then let me know. And I appreciate all the B's here, guys, as well. 16th time since the 1920s. Thank you for that, TubeUber. That's a great name. Right. Down here, I've opened up, this is in Trade Vision. You can grab yourself a copy of Trade Vision if you wish. There's a week's trial to it. Android and Apple apps are now out as well. So we make the RSI a little bit bigger here. And you see where we are right now? Here at sort of 60, right? Do you see that, like, for example, that peak there was exactly at 60? And yes, we have been a little higher. I'm not saying it can't go a little higher. But what I'm saying is that very often these levels, like here, which corresponds to that peak there, this corresponds to that peak up there, or this one here, mark the top of a move. What follows after a top, we go down a little bit, and then inevitably we're going to go higher at some point in the future. So the second one here, yeah, who just said that? Who just said that? My beach bum friend, you get a gold star. Why? Because what did you write there in the chat? Can you see it, guys? If you can see it, copy it. You might get a gold star too. He said the 200-day moving average line isn't looking very happy. And he's right. Let me get rid of all the lines except for the 200-day moving average line. You can toggle them on down here. And you see here and here. See how we hit that? We bounced off it down below. And you see how yesterday, Friday rather, we hit that. We closed a little lower. Today, we're trading at the very bottom end of that trading zone. So the 200-day moving average line is still our resistance. And we do need to break through that to move from a short-term sort of recovery bounce into actually a meaningful rally. And today does not appear to be the day where that is the case. The fear index is also popping up a 6.8% here pre-market, which is pretty significant. Why is it doing that? Probably because of what Trump's up to. There is also a funky little currency situation going on in Taiwan. Happy to walk you through that as well. If you wish, just ask me about it a little bit later. But let's run through the key stuff here that we've got on our plate, because there's plenty of stuff to understand there as well. So business confidence in the US of A is, according to the lovely goons at Goldman Sachs, it's down here. And it doesn't take a rocket science to work out that it's fallen a lot. This line is the average, by the way. That is average. So we are significantly below average. Last time we were at our low, well, we did it in 2022. We did it in COVID. We did it at the global financial crisis. So it's pretty low. Future CapEx expectations. What the heck does that mean? Capital expenditure is basically investment. Will US companies invest? Are they planning to invest more or less? Well, the level sits at 0, like 0, nada, null. When was the last time we were that low? Can anybody tell? Yeah, COVID was one, and the other one was, again, the GFC, the global financial crisis. Every great crash and crisis in the world, by the way, gets an acronym. It's a rule. If you haven't got an acronym, you haven't made it yet. So that's telling you that there is some significant medium and long-term risk for the US economy to slide into a recession unless Trump pulled something out of his trousers. In the form of tax breaks, yes, tax breaks, tax cuts, and regulatory overhaul, and maybe a couple of trade deals, bigly trade deals, which would be nice if they came sooner rather than later, right? So this is a drag on sentiment, right? Now, the hedge funds have read the news. Why? Well, they tend to be fairly well informed. And I was a hedge fund strategist for a little while, by the way, which is why I love these guys so much. So the leverage in blue here, which is basically how much are these guys invested? They are at pretty low levels of their investment exposure. So they basically are sitting on not a lot of investment. They're not really very much in the market. And what does that mean? Well, you could say it's the state of the market. It's a bad market. But I told you there'd be several silver linings today. Well, is it more likely to go down or is it more likely to go up? Put it in the chat. Up or down? What do you think? Do you think it's more likely? If I could spell likely, double I, so double I likely. More likely to go up or down? Put up or down in the chat. Let's just get a temperature read for the room here. Gunther, Dave, Noah, Garanier, Stephen, Roy. There's a lot of ups here. A lot of ups. The Secret Film Student says down. Well, they did make your films more expensive today, so yeah, sorry about that. Most of you are up. There's a few outliers on the downs, and yeah, I would agree with you on that. What's the sort of scientific measure here? Well, just look at like what was the lowest level we were at in the last 10 years here, right? So that's the difference between the lowest level. And what's the distance from the highest level that we've been at? So we've been up here, right? So you just see the scale of the up is bigger than the scale of the down, and therefore it's much more likely to go up than down, right? It's just sort of like probabilities, really. So yes, hedge funds are not buying, but when they do, they're going to buy bigly. That could be good, right? So what about overall funds? Not just the hedge funds, not just the chosen ones, not just the special ones, not just the ones with the highest fees who take all your money for very little returns, usually not those guys, but just like all funds. Well, similar story, isn't it, really? We're down here. And again, we're at very, very low levels of investment. They're just basically sitting on the sidelines, right? And they did that in 2022. They did that in COVID. They did that in 2016. They did that in 2012. But again, not good for now, but when they do buy, right, the upside could be tremendous. But the moment isn't today, my friends. That's what I'm trying to say to you. So before you run out and you go and buy everything you want to buy and go deep, knee deep into Palantir or whatever it is today, I would urge you to learn the simple rules that those guys on Wall Street use to decide what they buy. Because those guys have been on Wall Street for 50 years, 100 years or longer, and they're still there. Why? Because they're still solvent. They're still making money. They know how to make more money tomorrow. And the rules they use are actually very simple. They're really only 3. And it'll help you to do 2 things. It'll help you to stop missing out on the big, beautiful breakouts that we get pretty much every week. And it'll also protect your portfolio from the emotional madness that goes on in our brains, which means, if you've got a stock that's down 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80%, stop me when I go too high. Probably, right? Most people do. That's avoidable. It's avoidable with some very, very, very simple rules and procedures. I teach you those completely for free. Why? It's our mission to make 1 million of you financially free so that more people will have the time to play with Winston on what is it today? Monday, you see? He'd like more dogs. In the park, on mountains, and on beaches, so that there are more ears to chew. So yeah, come and join us and learn. It's completely free. It's a 15-minute video. It's as short as I could possibly make it. So write it down, felixprehn.org/get-free. I also put the link for you in the chat here, so you don't even have to type. You can just click on the bloody thing, and I think it'll be tremendously helpful. And by the way, guys, if you have watched it and you think it was helpful, just write helpful in the chat and just show people how incredibly helpful that actually is. Now, what about computers? I talked about computers, and I talk about computers a lot, right? We can look at the Palantir earnings in a second as well. Thanks for the reminder that computers buy and sell the market based on indicators, based on certain metrics, right? And when they are really, really heavily invested like they were here in 2018, well, they're very likely to sell off. Right now, they're basically at 0, right? Look at all the helpfuls there, guys. And you see that? See how many helpfuls there are in here? So if you seriously see all these guys going, this is super helpful, this is helping me not just make money, but it's helped me protect my money, and you're still going, I'm not going to watch, I haven't got 15 minutes. I've listened to this guy drivel on for 15 minutes, but I'm not actually going to listen to a pure, dense educational video to give me the rules to protect my money and my family and my financial future. Then, yeah, hopefully you're not one of those people, because I know this is a smart room. This is a very smart room of people. So go and watch it. Watch it right now. You don't need to know about the rest of this, honestly. The rules are 10 times more important. It's like, if you showed up to like soccer practice or something and you wanted to practice some weird little skill but that we're discussing, but you actually didn't know what the game was about, that you had to get the ball into the net, right? If you didn't know that, well, there wasn't really much point in learning the weird little skill, right? So go and learn that, because that's the most important thing ever. So Dami says the 6-hour YouTube class was the best thing ever. I appreciate that, and I'm very glad it was for you. That's a video, by the way, in my educational playlist, which the other guy described as, what did he say? He said, this is some sort of ego trip. 6 hours? I can't believe it. I'm like, okay, it's 6 hours of value, my friend. But you can't please everybody. We can please the tsunami. Now, here is some good news, right? And Winston always brings some good news, don't you, Winston? We can mostly see pause at this point. But what's Winston's good news? We've now have 75% of earnings in for the S&P. So the most important companies have already reported. A couple of more big ones today, like Palantir, for example, which will round us up quite nicely. And we were expecting earnings per share to grow at 6% here. 6% was the expectation. So far, we've got 12%. So far, we are beating 2x. But the interesting thing is, at least I think it's interesting, the companies who miss, they get beaten up badly. The companies who exceed, sort of like a little lukewarm, the reaction. We're not seeing like 10, 20% rallies most of the time. So the market is definitely looking more on the downside than to the upside. So yeah, very good numbers. Just market reaction is a little bit lukewarm. But ultimately, earnings per share growth is what gives us long-term bull runs, right? That's one chilled out dog. Yeah, he is. He's always very chilled. Well, he does exercise probably 5 hours a day, something like that. That might explain why he's so chilled. Plus, it's evening time here, so he's trying to get some nap time in. Now, the second piece of really good news is buybacks. So buybacks, companies buying their own shares, are the biggest buyers of stocks in the United States. And we expect them to buy more and more and more. And over the last 3 months, they've bought $192 billion. That's going to increase. They're going to buy about $1 trillion this year. And that kicked off about a week ago, but it's going to go into full-blown mode now of buying. So that is helpful. That's stabilizing for the market. So that's something positive, right? So I'm going to write that down. Now, I've told you this already, but I'll tell you one more time. Go and learn the rules. If you don't know the rules, don't be in the game, because you will lose. Who will you lose to? The lovely people who run Wall Street or a profit. If you're running it for like an emotional kick, I know you're not. No, I'm kidding. But if you don't know the rules, seriously, you shouldn't be in the game, because you could lose 10, 20, 30, 40 years of savings that you worked for insanely hard, given up most of your life for, and you can lose it in a flash. You can literally prevent that from happening by spending 15 minutes to learn the rules. So if you're going to go learn the rules, write rules in the chat, and I know that you're actually going to do that. Don't say buybacks. The market tanks for a week. Is there? Red Hot Synth, brilliant there. I'm glad you're going to go watch the rules and learn the rules. And I know some of you guys have watched it like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Earnings, okay? So most of the big guys have already reported. And as I just said, the numbers were good. But this one here, and again, let me make this as big as possible for you. Feel free to take a screenshot, obviously. What have we got today that we really care about? Well, let me highlight the ones that I care about. Palantir, obvious one. Hims and hers. I think that's an important one. Tomorrow, then that's tonight. Tomorrow before the opening, we get Celsius. I'm interested actually in Celsius. That whole space is I'm liking. AMD for sure, something to look at. I didn't care about Rivian. Win maybe not so much. Wednesday definitely Uber. The fat people, Novo Nordisk. We care about them. We somewhat care about ARM because that's a reflection for like NVIDIA. Obviously, some of the other ones are also interesting and important and so on. Peloton, no, not interested. Although that's actually, funnily enough, starting to like look a little bit better. Shopify, I should look at that for sure, because again, that tells you quite a lot about the economy. Coinbase, just as a reflection of the whole crypto world. Mercado Libre, because it's, I think it's a brilliant company, and it's sort of the Amazon / PayPal of Latin America. And very little US exposure in there. I quite like that. I think Affirm is also quite useful for what's going on here. And anything else for the rest of the week? First Dips, I didn't know they were listed. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some in here. Oxy maybe, but I'm certainly not in that. So it's still quite a big week, right? Still quite a lot of stuff coming out at us here. Walt Disney, you now identify as a, I don't know what. Ferrari maybe for some of you guys, but yeah, that's kind of like, there's still quite a lot of stuff coming up here this week. But obviously for tonight, we're going to be watching Palantir and Hims and Hers, and I'll update you on that as well. ANET is a big one. Yeah, it is. Where did I see that? I also thought that was on the list here somewhere. I missed it. I think the logo, oh, here's Arista. Yeah, that's also a big one. Because that tells you, again, quite a lot about just the whole AI investment, job. Are people spending enough on infrastructure and so on? So that's definitely a good one. Archer winner earnings. I don't know, my friend. You can look it up on a stock chart. Just type in ACHR and in Trade Vision here, and it usually tells you there. 12th of May, apparently. So we looked at the QQQs, right? We looked at the NASDAQ. We're down about 0.9% right now. We look at the S&P. It's a very similar story. We're below the 200-day moving average line still. We are also getting into sort of overbought territory here on the RSI. So we're at 58. Can we draw a line down there? Are we allowed to do that? No. Okay. That's going to be something I'm going to ask the guys to do. It'd be nice to be able to draw lines in there. Can you? Can you draw manual lines? No. Okay. Can't be done, apparently. But we can cheat. I've got my own little line tool. You will not defeat me from drawing lines, but you get the idea, right? So we're in not necessarily at the very top of like overboughtness down here, but moderately close. And those were like the highs up here. We went a little bit higher in November and December, and again, those were the peaks of the market. So we're kind of getting there. But really, ultimately, we need to see this break through the 200-day moving average line, which sits at 573. So that's the resistance here. And 575, by the way, is also the resistance of where the market makers sell, so where the hedge funds sell. So it's not going to be a straight line up. That's really all I'm saying. That was kind of my bad news, that we're going to see some bounce off that today. So what does that mean? Well, other stuff goes up on days like this. Gold's up, right? And that's good if you're in gold. So this is what I'm trying to get across to you guys, is that you don't want to have just like the one sector portfolio right now. You don't want to be just in tech. If you also say in gold a little bit, so and when do we buy? Well, we try to buy on pullbacks. So when we move close to this 50-day moving average line, we didn't go that low here, but this was better than obviously being at the very top. So we try to avoid being super extended, buying when these stocks are super extended. But yeah, I think gold, for example, has a nice upside there. What about some of our more defensive stocks like Philip Morris, right? That's trading quite nicely, slightly green. So it's stuff like that we can still make some money out of. And as it goes up, you tighten your stops, and then when it goes down, you realize the profit, right? And then you got more money to eventually buy more tech or whatever it is that you actually want to buy. Now for Palantir, the resistance is at 125. That's what we have to break through here today with some ginormous monster earnings. And the actual earnings expectations are about as follows. And I'm going to draw a little crudely on here, but so you get the idea. What am I extending here? You see that box over here, that blue box? That's the expected move. So it's basically telling you that the market expects Palantir to move between about 105 and about 140. So basically plus minus $15 or something like that. Yeah, that's sort of the expected range here approximately. Maybe it's a little higher than that on the downside. So quite a big move, but we're not expecting to go back below 100 at least. That's something. So what's my view on this? Palantir is very, very volatile. So sometimes we have these amazing, monstrous earnings, but it takes everything out. And at other times, it's the opposite. They have been pretty consistent for the last 5, 6 earnings, and they have surprised. The only thing I would say is that we're back at February highs. So this is one of the few stocks that is actually not down since Trump came in. And what does it mean? Well, it means Winston's very happy, doesn't it? Look how chilled he looks. But it does mean that when you do rally from, the bottom here, 87% up in 18 trading days, it's reasonable to expect, again, some sort of level of pullback. But it doesn't have to happen, right? They could just over-deliver. They could just come in with better numbers, better commercial, better US government contracts, and things can go higher and go to 150, right? It's all entirely possible. So it's a good setup. It's just one that might have been pre-run a little bit. That's what I'm saying there. Six-hour class is the best. I watch it often. It's interesting. Thank you very much. I'm glad you get some value out of that. Novo Nordisk, yeah, that's the fat people. Yeah, I thought you guys got that. Is DRS still a buy? I actually don't want to answer those kind of questions anymore because it's not helping you. It's not helping me telling you one thing. So yeah, of course, for my students, I tell you everything I do because I want to be transparent, and I think you can learn from it. But I also know that you guys are attending like sessions and one-on-ones and group education, mentoring and so on. But unless you've actually learned the rules, like what is the sense of me telling you, oh, I think this is a buy? Right? So is this now extended? Yes. But does it still look glorious? Yes. Why? Because well, we had another big, beautiful volume day, the day after, a little bit bigger. So institutions are piling in. We're trading at the very top end of Friday's trading range on a day where the market's a little bit shaky. So yeah, this looks bloody amazing. But was it better to buy it where we bought it at 38 rather than 42? Duh. But so what am I going to do? Am I going to buy more here? I'm going to answer your question anyway, and I always do. I try to restrain myself, but I do it anyway. No, I'm going to wait for a pullback here, I think, and we'll get a pullback probably. And if we don't, we don't. We're still making money. Is the downtrend over? I think it's just gotten started. Chronogar, yeah. Don't ask if this is a buy. Start investigating yourself precisely, and you investigate by actually learning the rules. ARK-K, one of the ARK stocks is actually on my list today. I was looking at this one today. I wouldn't buy it here, but I'd buy it a little higher, just a little higher, not a lot higher, but just a little bit higher. Yeah. So it's starting to look, risky tech is starting to make a little bit of a comeback. I guess ARK-K is a similar-ish setup. Yeah, we need to be a little higher there. So I think you can see, those of you who watched the masterclass, or at least are my students, you know what I prefer, ARK-W over ARK-K, right? I think you can try to see that. Someone trying to spam? Who's trying to spam? Get the bastard. John saying bespoke. What's the bespoke? John, what are you on about? Bespoke tranche. Tell me what that is, and I'll give you my view on it. Ding, 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 ding. The market's open. Okay, good. Hood, bell time. Oh, bell time. Oh, yes. We almost forgot. The moment you've all been waiting for, the only reason you're here, the 40 Towers bell. Funny thing is, I get more emails about this than almost anything else. One of you was very kind, sent me an email. The problem with this is that I'm holding the bottom and all sorts, and some people are saying turn it upside down, loosen the screw, many very useful pieces of advice, but none of them work because it is just a faulty telltale bell that does this. It is built to do this. It wasn't built to be any louder, because if you're in a hotel establishment, which is, I imagine, where this thing came from, you don't really want someone going around going, you know, like a cowbell. So anyway, we do have allegedly one on the route. I have yet to see it, but it'll come. It'll come at some point, probably after I'm back from Europe. Can you bring down the screen so we can see the tickers? Can't see the ticker. Let me see. That's not very helpful. You can see the ticker at the top. ARK? No? Yeah, you can. See, it says at the top. Maybe you're zoomed in, or maybe it's your phone. It might be that the phone zooms you in ever so slightly. Nice rotary phone. Yes. Why use modern technology? Hey. So okay. John's telling me here. John is telling me in several things. They modernized CDO, the very thing that caused the 2008 crash. Well, that sounds good. Who are they, John? I missed the first part. Who are they? Is MP Materials, Lam Research, so many Felix? Yes, I know. If you want to get really scared, then you do this, and then no, this one actually, and then there are loads of us, right? Somehow. Anyway, we get the idea. Winston loves the masterclass. He certainly do. Must be a British bell. It's definitely a British bell. It's definitely not a German bell. You can see the ticker. Okay, good. All right. Tesla is dropping like a rock. Drop it like it's hot. Well, it's down 1.85%. It's doing exactly what we said it was going to do. It was bouncing off the 200-day moving average line here, and it doesn't really have any real momentum until we get some news. What would likely be the news? I'm hoping that on the 1st of June, there will be an army of robo-taxis floating around Austin, Texas, and that they will not cause chaos. And that could be very, very big news. But yeah. Who's they? Who's they? Bespoke tranche opportunity, John. I'm a little slow, John. I still don't know what a bespoke tranche opportunity is. I don't know what that means, to be honest. Berkshire is tanking. Yeah, and it's just people going, well, we've had the Warren for 60 years, and he's got 350 billion in cash lying around. He said no to almost every opportunity there ever was and managed to make more money than anybody ever made. And we're worried that the next guy, Greg Abel, might just go, I've got $350 billion. I'm going to go shopping. And so it's going down. And it makes sense. It makes sense, you know, because there is that key man risk here. Now, the underlying assets are still there. They've still got all the money. They've still got all the shares. So too big a move would not make a lot of sense. It is challenging, though, for companies the size of Berkshire to invest. Why? Well, they can't just go and buy stuff, right? Just can't. Like, so, you know, I bought some of this here last week, DRS. That's a $9 billion stock. They can't invest in that. They'll buy the whole thing, and then they own all of it. And then they're like, now we've taken it private. Was that the idea? How do we sell this thing again? So it's very challenging when funds get very big. And honestly, the biggest edge that you and me have as retail investors is that we don't have $100 billion, because it's very, very hard to beat the market with $100 billion. So the fact that Buffett managed to do that is a sign of very careful selection and a heck of a lot of patience, more than almost anybody has out there. So I'm not usually a fan of huge funds because they just almost always underperform the market, just because there's so few other things that they can buy. They just, you know, if they invested 1% of the cash into something, that's $3 billion. So like that DRS stock there, that would be a third of the company. You can't buy a third of the company. There are all sorts of filings, and you might have to make a takeover offer and all sorts of problems. And now you've drained the market of all liquidity, and it's just this huge problem. How do you offload that? You just can't. So it's actually very challenging. Will we be able to buy BRKB now? Well, you could certainly buy it. I mean, it's a pretty good asset, pretty diversified. Obviously, Apple is still a significant part. Oxy isn't really performing and unlikely to, given that the oil price keeps going lower and lower thanks to some sort of Trump-Saudi love match. Now, the sign of Buffett's performance is following the rules no matter what. Yeah, I think there is some truth in that. I mean, definitely some truth in that. Like all the big investors, he always says everybody should just buy the index, and then he doesn't, which irks me a little bit because it's sort of implying I don't think people are smart enough. I think what he's probably saying is people aren't disciplined enough. I think it's much more easy to be disciplined now because we can automate, right? So I can set up all of my buys for the week and all of my sales. All my selling is automated. So for example, Netflix, right? I've got a Netflix options position on, and it's been doing very well. And so this morning we're down 3.5%. Do I need to look at this? No. Have I looked at it in the portfolio? No. Why not? Because there is a stop and it'll sell at a profit. It's guaranteed. So I don't really care that much whether it goes up or down 3.5% or not. And that's the beauty of using automations in brokers now. So it's much easier for us to do this now than it used to be. So imagine 30, 40 years ago, this was tough because you got off the phone with a broker who was a great salesman and he would probably sell you something you didn't want to buy. So, Buffett is 94 and is not retired. Yes, end of year. You didn't want to do it too quickly. You thought it might be premature. But this whole retiring thing, when it's your own business and when you enjoy what you do, it becomes a different thing, right? It's not like he has to get up at 7 in the morning and drive somewhere and sit through some meaningless meetings. No, he just says, we're not going to do any meetings if he doesn't like them. So it's a very different thing. So his retiring and maybe your retiring is very different. So my first retiring was from the corporate world, and I was bloody glad I did that. And then the next retiring was removing myself from my businesses. And that was also marvelous. And now I do a bunch of things voluntarily. One of them is teach, and I do this because it's really fun and I enjoy it and it's a hobby and it's insanely gratifying and rewarding because I see thousands of you guys getting better, and I see guys who email me and say, hey, I've just retired because I learned from you how to actually make my money work. Or people say, hey, you saved me 100K in the last drawdown. And that's why I do it. And that's why it's fun. So it's not that we want to do nothing. When I quit corporate, I wanted to do nothing. So I do nothing, go do nothing for 6 weeks. I did that. I sat on the beach for 6 weeks and I got so bored. I was like, I got to do something. And so you kind of go through these waves, but obviously Warren Buffett has tremendously enjoyed what he's doing. I think he's doing the responsible thing. I think, his head is still very, very active, but he's presumably realizing that, well, there is a risk at 94 and that it's probably the right thing to do to hand it over. And he was also saying, I could maybe still be useful and I could maybe still come up with ideas and stuff. And I love that, right? So the guy is still going to be calling in and going, oi, Greg, I've got this idea. Why don't you call so-and-so and have a chat with them? And that's brilliant. And he's going to do that till his last day as a physical human being. And that's wonderful. And I think in many ways we should all aim for something like that, where we do something that's meaningful, that's impactful, that helps people. And he's helped tremendous numbers of people become financially free. So kudos to Warren Buffett, really one of the greats, one of the real greats. And he seems to be a very nice guy. Ruan says, Vanderberg, high trade vision breakouts. Why don't you cover them? Well, you can look them up in trade vision, my friend. And they're here. And what I would do with the indicator for the breakouts here, like Duolingo, for example, or Skyward, or whatever these are, I would look at these and I would then open the chart. And I would apply our rules, because an algorithm would always come up with some things, and then it's for you to decide whether or not this is actually a buy. So what I would look at here, I'd connect the recent highs with a straight line. We've clearly broken through that in a very meaningful way. We've bounced several times off the 50-day moving average line here, which is very nice. We've got some tremendous volume here after earnings. So yeah, that was definitely a breakout. And then you got to ask yourself, well, Why didn't I buy it here? Because you didn't look at the opportunity beforehand. And obviously that's one of the things that I try to do for our community, is give you a little bit of a heads up of things, and then we set buy stop orders. But yeah, it looks like with general market sentiment, this one here, and I know nothing about this insurance company, by the way, but it looks like it's going to pull back a little bit. And that could be a nice buying opportunity, because the momentum here looks actually pretty strong, right? So yeah, it looks like a good one. Looks like, again, I'm not telling you to buy it, but I'm saying looks like a good one. But analyze each one of them, apply your rules, make sure your risk management is in place, and then I'm sure you're going to find a lot that'll make you a lot of money. I don't read what do you call your actual characters there. What's the word for it? I can't read it, but I presumably 200 moving average. I presume that says. Greetings to Mossad. Hey, behave yourselves. AMD got out the wrong side of the bed, so they decided to go up. Well, they do have earnings coming up, so maybe somebody's got some optimism there again. But yeah, my view on AMD has yet to change. I hope it does soon, but so far it has most decidedly not. So yeah, it's up 1.4%, which is bloody meaningless if you're down 80%, right? Hebräisch. Is Hebrew, is that the name for the actual characters, or you have a separate name for that? I'd like to know. Actually, I could ask my trainer is actually in Tel Aviv. I could probably ask him. He would know. Can I look into Apple? You can, yes. Any thoughts of adding a fear and greed gauge in Trade Vision? Yes. Yes, it's coming. It's coming. Congress bought AMD. Really interesting. Well, that's an interesting one. Does that mean we should buy it? Well, I'll do a bit of digging around that. But no, my rules do not change because somebody in Congress did something. It's sort of, even if Winston said to me, I've just bought AMD, I'd look at Winston and said, you've lost your mind. And he'd probably say, yes, I think I probably have. It's Hebrew, yes. I just thought they might have a different name for the actual characters. Some languages do. Shalom, indeed. Why is Hood down? Hood. Well, it's down 5.5%. It looks like it's down a lot, but look at the pattern. Look at the chart. Look at the chart. Is it down a lot? Well, the recent high is a little higher. And just look at the size of, even if you ignore the Trump, let's ignore the Trump dip here. The stock moves in that sort of zone, right? So if it goes back down here and bounces off, again, that'd be completely fine. If it drops below that, then maybe we should get a little bit worried about it. Where's the 50-day moving average line? It's still above it. Sloping down, by the way. So what's the warning sign? The sloping down moving average lines. When the 50 starts to go flat like it did here, and then starts to go down like it did here, it's telling you something. What's it telling you? It's telling you, tighten your stops, my friends, or maybe just get the F out. Why am I always screaming with a German accent every time I watch your streams? My family think I'm insane now, says Paul. No, that's quite all right. Although if you were to type it, we could actually hear it. Celsius is in bad shape, is it? Dropped a bit, didn't it, last week? Well, again, it's a question of perspective. So if you just look at the recent lows, you kind of expect it to touch those, and then it'll probably go back up, and it'll probably hit its head again here. So at the moment, this is a bit of an exhaustion thing. 50-day moving average line is still going up. We care a lot about that. So we're going to go into earnings. I'm getting more and more bullish on the whole space, to be honest with you. There's also this one I was looking at today. Monster beverages. This is starting to look like it wants to go up. It hasn't yet, And I'm not buying it until it does, but you know, a couple of dollars, $1 or so up, and we would be taking out most of the highs of the last 2 years or so. So earnings might do that for us. We'll see. Why did you ask about Hebrew? I was just wondering whether you had a different word for your characters, because they're quite unique, really, aren't they? So, you know, the Indians have Sanskrit, for example. They don't just call them Indian characters. You see what I mean? Or you know, or Hindu characters or something. So that's what I was asking. And apparently they're just called Hebrew. Now, have you seen recent news in German politics? I try not to upset myself, so I usually don't watch German politics. I just assume that they're cocking it up royally, that they're letting in anybody who doesn't have a passport and a violent inclination, and they're just generally hoping to make the country go down the tube. That's sort of my general expectation of German politics. And if that's your baseline, then you're rarely disappointed. I joke, but I only half joke. So yeah. Japan, it's kanji. Yeah, I think it's not a completely ridiculous question. Winston wants you to talk about hymns. Well, earnings are out tonight, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. I think we'll have more to say on the subject tomorrow after earnings. Rheinmetall is doing pretty well. But yes, well, they are also spending all your money on a really pointless war in the Ukraine. And then they, yes, sort of propaganda you into believing that it's the greatest thing on earth. But yeah, it's a lovely government. You guys re-elected them. Now, not up to me, though. I don't get to vote. I do hold a passport, but I do have a, there it is. I'm about to go traveling tomorrow. I do have a German passport, but you don't get to vote once you leave the country for 7 years, which might be a good thing. Do you still like Funsmith? I still like Funsmith, yes. I think he's a good one. Why does the bottom of your teacup have the Microsoft logo? Chinese characters, my friend. Can you see that? I think you probably cannot. It's a bit too dark. There, you can probably see that. It's not a Microsoft logo. No, it's presumably the mark of whoever made that mug. Is Microsoft still a buy? All right, my friends. I think on the note of all these questions around stocks and their charts, my answer to you will be, why don't you learn the rules so that you don't need me? That's ultimately my goal here. I actually want you to, if nobody tuned in, and we did a live stream here and there were only 2 people on it, and me and Winston, I'd be very happy. If the reason for that is that you guys all just tuned in and said, hey, Felix, I've learned everything. I'm doing incredibly well. We're all retired. We're sitting on a beach and life is absolutely amazing. And I'm yawning like Winston back there. That's our goal here. So please go to felixfriends.org/getfree and learn. And I wish you a tremendous day. I will be traveling tomorrow. I'll do my best to put out a review of the Palantir and HIMS earnings, because I think a lot of you guys care about that. And then I see you from a new destination shortly. All the best. Aleph bet. Oh, we just learned something. Is that what you call it? Aleph bet.